Before adjustments can be made, make sure the CAAS unit is turned on and connected to the computer via the USB cable. Open the Abraxis Manager software. Both the reagent rack and sample rack must be removed from the unit before adjustments are made. At the top middle of the screen, click on Utilities, then Alignment, then choose Probe versus Rack 1 and click OK. Click the Test button to see how the probe is currently aligned over the pin. When the probe is aligned properly, it should hover a few millimeters above the pin, but it should never be touching the pin. Make small adjustments to the alignment of the probe by clicking the appropriate colored arrows. The single arrow will make a single increment adjustment, approximately 1 millimeter. The double arrow will make a 5-fold increment adjustment, approximately 5 millimeters. The green arrows will move the probe along the z-axis, up or down, which dictates how close the probe comes to physically touching the pin. The blue arrows will move the probe along the x-axis, left to right. The red arrows will move the rack pins and not the probe along the y-axis. Note that clicking the red up arrow will bring the probe closer to the observer because the pins are actually moving farther away from the observer. Be sure to click the Test button after making each adjustment to examine each movement. This is an example of correct alignment. This is an example of incorrect alignment. When satisfied with the new adjustments, click Save, then Close. At the top middle of the screen, click on Utilities, then Alignment, then choose Probe versus Rack 2. Click the Test button to see how the probe is currently aligned over the pin. In this situation, the probe could be moved very slightly to the right by clicking the single blue arrow once, then clicking the Test button to confirm. When satisfied with the adjustments, click Save, then Next. Select No for setting the alternative sample cup depth, then OK. In order to make adjustments involving the plate alignment, the plastic covering has to be removed with a Phillips head screwdriver. Carefully and slowly remove the plastic cover by sliding it towards the front of the unit. Be sure not to hit the metal probes on the wash head. Place only an uncoated Abraxis plate into the plate mover. Abraxis can provide an uncoated plate with any shipment for adjustment purposes. At the top middle of the screen, click on Utilities, then Alignments, then choose Probe versus Plate, and click OK. Click Test to first see how the probe is aligned in the well. Use the directional arrows to properly align the probe in the center of the well. Keep in mind that the red arrows move the plate, and therefore clicking the red arrow up will move the probe closer to the observer. This is an example of a properly aligned probe in the microtiter well. When aligning the probe along the z-axis by way of the green arrows, be sure the probe is not touching the bottom of the well. Ideally, the tip of the probe should be no deeper than halfway into the depth of the well. When satisfied, click Save, then Close. At the top middle of the screen, click on Utilities, then Alignment, then choose Probe versus Wash Cup. Use the blue arrows to move the probe along the x-axis, left to right, and use the green arrows to move the probe along the z-axis, up and down. In order to adjust the wash cup along the y-axis, front to back, a screwdriver is required to loosen the screws holding the wash cup in place. Remove both screws that hold the wash cup in place. Manually position the wash cup so the probe aligns to the center of the cup along the y-axis, front to back. Replace the screws when finished with the manual adjustment. When satisfied, click Save, then Close. At the top middle of the screen, click on Utilities, then Alignment, then choose Washer versus Plate, and click OK. Click Test to first see how the wash head is aligned in the wells. An Abraxis uncoated plate is required for this alignment. When viewing the plate head-on, the probes should align in the center of the wells from left to right. The blue arrows will adjust the wash head positioning from left to right along the x-axis. In order to align the probes correctly on the z-axis top to bottom, one hand must be placed on the plate to feel for contact between the probes and the bottoms of the plate wells. It is best to click the single green up arrow until there is no contact felt, then begin to click the single green down arrow until the very first contact is felt. Then click the double green down arrow once and save these settings. In order to adjust the wash head alignment from front to back, the red arrows will be used. Utilizing a smartphone camera is an easy and safe way to complete this adjustment. The ideal positioning is when the space between both the aspiration probes and the dispensing probes is centered. Another way of describing this would be to make sure the two probe types are equidistant from the front and back of the well. From this still camera shot, the user can see that the dispensing probe, the shorter probe, and the aspirating probe, the longer probe, are the same distance away from either side of the wells, and the space between these probes is directly in the center. When satisfied, click Save, then Close. Slowly and carefully begin to slide the plastic cover back onto the unit. Be sure the cover slides over the top of this piece. The cover must slide over the top of this piece as well. Replace the two screws in the front of the unit that secure the plastic cover in place. Tighten the first screw until it has grasped the internal threading, then do the same for the second screw, and finally securely tighten both screws. Sometimes the plastic covering must be slightly shifted or bumped in order for the screws to grasp their threading. If done correctly, only minimal effort should be required to fasten these screws. The alignments have now been made. Replace the reagent in sample racks, then continue with normal assay procedures.